Welcome back to the Marianne Hickman Show. Listen, I want to tell you right away who this episode is specifically for. Maybe you did some keyword searching on this episode because you're a recently divorced single mom. Maybe you found this episode because you're looking for things to help bring in the money at home. Maybe you don't have a breadwinner or anyone else other than you. Maybe you found this episode at the library, or maybe you're listening in the car or in the gym because you just need someone to direct you and help you find a way to raise yourself up to the next level financially. Maybe you need some more harmony in your home and the work-life balance thing just isn't working for you. As a woman in today's world, we are being challenged. We are being pulled left and right. And as Trina says in this episode, there's no doubt that we are at war. It's a silent war, making us question who we are, what we're supposed to do, where we're supposed to be, what clothes we're supposed to wear, whether or not we can go to the grocery store without the thought of something breathing down our necks of should I be here? Should I buy this? What should I be doing? We're constantly stolen out of our present lives. In this episode, it's meant to bring you back. It's meant to reassure you. It's meant to give you some answers that maybe you've even been praying for. So listen, as you've been listening to this episode, and if you're new here to the Marianne Hickman Show, welcome to the community. I want to say hi in the comments. And if someone's name pops into your mind as you're listening to this episode, stop, pause, send them the link to this episode, because chances are they are praying for what you just got. I hope you enjoy this one with Trina Celeste. There's lots of stuff happening. We pushed this episode up in our production because if you're listening to this really close to the release date, there might be some things available to you before the deadline is over. Go check it in the show notes. I will see you in the episode. I can't remember how we met. Was it through Carrie that we met, or
I think I got invited into that, what is it? Coffee and drinks or something.
Oh yeah. I invited you to that. It's the ladies fill your cup.
Fill your cup. I knew it had to do with
cocktails
drinks.
and mocktails.
That's what it had to do with drinking. That's why I showed
You're like,
up.
wait, I'm there. I'm there.
I'm there. Okay.
Have you seen Drunk History?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
What is it? Is it
it's
documentary or what?
It's a podcast style show where the host gets totally hammered, the guest gets totally hammered.
Oh my gosh, you don't want to see me like that.
It's so funny. The guests
Maybe
are historians. And they're like talking history, but they're totally wasted. It's so funny.
I gotta find that one. Okay.
I think you'll like it.
Yep.
Okay, so
We can treat.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, when we first met, I had heard of Tech Moms actually before I had met you.
Oh, that's great.
And I was like, oh my gosh, Trina started this whole Tech Moms things. And then when we were talking over, I think it was on the Zoom call and in the WhatsApp, I had to get your book because of this whole work-life balance, which makes me want to throw up every time I say it, because it's
balance is bullshit.
Such a misnomer. Yeah. And then you coined this phrase, goat shit.
Goat shit. Balance is goat shit. It is.
I have to know all about that. And in your book, you tell so many vulnerable stories with your son, and it's jaw-dropping and heart-wrenching as a mom to read through. What started all of this? What's the backstory to Tech Moms, and what's the backstory to writing your book of the anti-work-life balance?
Yeah. Well, 30 years in my career and a lot of life, right? Like you were reading in the book, I had to be very vulnerable, and I knew it. It was hard to write. I had to take a lot of breaks, a lot of crying, through it. I actually have the Audible version. I, would just break down crying, even reading it again. It's life is hard, and so it's one where in 30 years, so my background has been in the tech industry, and we can kind of talk about how I got into it, but having to deal with so many different things, whether it was, divorce, share the story of what I went through there with my ex-husband, and to my son's suicidal ideation. And, life was happening in addition to work. And I think what I saw, and the reason why I decided to talk on that, was I felt like in the workplace, I had to hide who I was. I couldn't be a mom. I couldn't talk about the fact that I had to go pick up my son, because then it would be like, oh, she's got to go always be distracted with her kids. Or, it's like, I don't have a wife at home. I have to do these things, right? And just over the years, a lot of those challenges started to just kind of go, why do we keep doing this? And what is going on? And I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram, actually, that had been a, bestseller list. And he messaged me, say, hey, can you come to my office? I'm like, well, this is kind of weird.
And you didn't know him.
I didn't know him. But I reached out to some people that did, and they're like, he's legit. He's good. You can show up to his office. And I'm like, okay, I'll go meet with Randy. And I was in his office and just kind of said, here's who I am. He's like, I just want to get to know you. Like, tell me more about who you are, what you're doing. And I'm, sharing my history and what I do, kind of the normal thing. And he just stopped and he goes, you need to write your book. Like there was a book there to be written, like it already existed.
And had you thought of this?
No.
Wow.
I'd had lots of people because I had been professionally speaking for a while and I do a lot of public speaking and everybody's like, well, where's your book? And I'm like, I don't want to write a book. A book's really hard, right?
That's true. Most of us have one that's been locked up for 4 or 5 years.
It's there. But I'm like, no, I don't want to write a book.
Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Listen, I'm interrupting my own show because I want to give you something. Now, you guys all want to get on more stages. I've got a free resource for you of stages that are just clamoring for guests. They need guests on a daily, weekly, sometimes monthly basis. This is my podcast database. Now, what I'm going to do is have you go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put in your information there, I'm going to send this to you totally for free. Open up this database. You're going to click through it, find the next podcast that's relevant to your topic, hit the application button, show up on their podcast, get in front of their people, and share your content. Remember, mariannehickman.com/database. Let's get you unlocked.
I don't want to write a book. And so he kind of planted that seed finally where I'm like, there's something there. I don't know what it is. And I didn't know what I was going to write about. I kind of had this whole conversation. I'm like, well, what would I write about? What would that book be? I had to go through this whole internal self-discovery process of like, you don't just write a book for the sake of writing a book. Like there's no purpose to that. There's got to be a reason because you don't make money off writing a book.
No, you don't.
You don't.
I've read books that were aimless like that. And it's rough to read. But to your point, the book is not the thing. No. Selling 1 million copies on Amazon is not the thing.
It's not the thing.
No.
That's not the, and it was more of, well, why would I do this? What is it that I need to share or could be beneficial? And really, as I wrote even, it was more of, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to write this to sell 1 million books on Amazon, it was like, hey, what's that one person's life I can change? And what is the story that I would want to share? And it was like, you know what, my whole life I've been told to carry it all and I can't. And I know that. And I had to learn the hard way through a lot of those things. And really what it came back to is I had to learn how to center on me. And that intentionality of stopping trying to be what everybody else wants you to be. Stop trying to do things for everybody else all the time. Stop losing yourself in the sacrifice to everyone else's priorities, everybody else's goals, everybody else's needs, and putting yours secondary is what caused most of the challenges that I'd faced, right? Whether it was in my career or in my personal life, it all came from this fact that I kept just overgiving to everybody else and their needs and ignoring my own. And so I was actually at the gym, I'd been kind of noodling on it for a couple months, and I'm at the gym and I'm biking in the gym, and it just came to me, this whole life first model. And I was reading this book and I had to flip to the back of the book and I wrote the whole thing down at the back of the book. And it was just like, bam, right there. And I was like, this is what it is. And so that's where it just I got centered and started focusing on that. And that's where the whole premise. And then from there, it took me 2 years. And it's interesting because I talk about this orchestrating, right? I was very intentional in the title. And a few things happened where I had been calling it work-life harmony. I didn't use orchestrating, and I had work first. And
I noticed that shift.
Yeah.
In the book, you flopped them.
I flopped them, and I was keynoting at Overstock, now Bed Bath & Beyond, and I was...
Is that what they turned into?
Yeah, Bed Bath & Beyond is where now Overstock is. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Little tip of the little insider. But I was on for about 5 minutes before I went on to speak. And the CEO, Jonathan Johnson, was on, and we were having this conversation on shifting from balance to harmony. Like that was where it started. Like we need to find harmony in our lives, not this idea of balance and walking the tightrope and trying to carry it all. And I'm like, harmony just feels better. And he's like, yeah, he's like, but my teams in Ireland, he's like, they asked us if they could put life first instead of work. And I'm like, that's beautiful.
That's perfect.
I'm like, we need to be putting our life, if we put our lives first before work, then your work gets better. Your relationships get better. Your finances get better. Your personal development, because now you're centered on you and your priorities and not everybody else's. And how better else to know what to say no to when you know what you're going to say yes to? And that's to you.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of us don't know what that means yet.
Right.
I know I didn't. I was someone who didn't know what that meant. I think I'm still in evolution.
We all still are going through it, right? we in harmony isn't, the lack of fear. You're going to have fear. You're just going to step through it easier. It's not happy all the time. Harmony is none of those things. It's like, you're going to have rough things. You're going to go through hard things, but it's going to be like, I can see the long-term picture and know that I can get through it. And that brings a sense of harmony too, right? And so just knowing that you're going through this process of self-discovery and recentering. And I use the analogy of a garden within the book, and really looking at your life like a garden. And you are at the center of your garden, no one else, right? They're part of your garden, and they're going to come in and visit and help you bloom, hopefully. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I came up with invite in the gardeners that help you bloom and keep out the goats that consume.
I like that. Usually goat is like greatest of all time.
Great.
You're like,
no, I'm not
no.
talking the greatest of all
Not
time. I'm talking about like those really pesky, ornery goats that come in. And we grew up with goats. So
I was like, you have to know what you're
yeah.
You have to have experience
if you've ever
to go
had
there.
Experience with a goat. Like, they ate my brother's boots. They would eat tin cans. Like, and my mom, when I'd wake up in the morning, would have this chore list. And at the top of the list would be close the gates to the garden and make sure the goats don't get in every single day. And if they didn't, I'd be doing toilet duty, right? I'd be scrubbing the toilets if that was the case. If they got in, because they destroy everything. Mm-hmm. And you have goats in your life.
We have 11 dogs.
Yeah.
And ours is the equivalent. Our gate, my daughter's smiling right now because she knows what happens if the gate doesn't get shut and the garden gets destroyed and the chickens get murdered.
Yeah. So you've got to control the gates. And when I first started, talking and speaking on this concept, I had somebody come out after, because I was talking about setting the fence lines of your garden. It's like boundary work.
Okay. Yeah, right? I was going to ask about this. Tell me about the boundaries and the fence lines of the gates.
Yeah. So you've got your life garden. Let me maybe walk through the whole model. So the model itself is, there's 5 areas in your life that you need to be aware of that might become in disharmony. And if you're feeling disharmony, the model is to sit down and you draw an X across, and you just take a piece of paper and you draw it and you put you in the middle, right, where they cross, right? So you've got this model. One part of your garden is your relationships. You've got your finances. You have your work or community work. Somehow you're involved, right? You need to be working.
I think Tony Robbins calls it your contribution.
Yeah.
What you put in the world.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you don't need to work, and you're just giving back, there's still some form of fulfillment that brings harmony when you're actively engaged somehow. And then your personal development. Like, am I getting knowledge? Am I working on my spirituality? Am I working on my fitness? Like, you, right, are part of that garden. Your 5th one, which is the basis of everything, is your mental health. And I call it the fertile soil of mental health, because nothing is going to grow in your garden if you're not first taking care of the inner work. If you're not in a good mental state, stop, get that taken care of. Then you can work on your relationships. Then you can contribute better at work. Then you can work on building finances. But you've got to do the foundational work so that everything can grow, right? But what happens sometimes when we start to grow our gardens, if we haven't set the fence line, people will just come in and destroy it because they have some other idea of what you should do or where you should be and pushing you different ways, or, take all your wealth. I can't tell you how many times I've invested in companies and others that have just taken and disappeared, dealing with right now.
Oh,
so
I was curious about examples in your life where you've done the work.
Yeah.
It's like Chicken Little. You did the work, you planted the seed, you cut the wheat. How does someone know that someone's infesting their garden? How does someone know that there's some pesky little goat or donkey pain in the ass has come in and is, what does that look like in real life terms?
Yeah, I give a few examples. So let's start with work, right? I've had a lot of goat bosses, right? And this is where I'm like, I do this and some people be like, oh, I can go out and now I got gardener, goat. Like you start to see it. And I have a couple fun stories. So
if Trina ever calls you the goat, ask yourself what she means.
There's two forms of goats. Yeah. In my context, there's somebody that's going to be consuming you. That could feel like emotional toxicity. You ever had that friend that calls and all they do is just complain on the phone all the time? I'm like, it's good once in a while, but when it's every day and it leaves you feeling like there's no energy left, or a family member that's like that, you need to control the gates. So instead of just a fence line, going back to what this person was like, if I just set the fences, nobody's going to be in my life, and you don't want that. So you need to control the gates of like how much you're letting somebody in and being able to say, okay, time to go now. Right. And controlling that.
I want to interject here real quick because you've touched on two reparadigmings of phrases that are challenging the societal norm. One is this idea of work-life balance, which we know is garbage because it's not a balancing act. We're not on a tightrope and not everything weighs the same all the time. No. But then you've just created something that it's done something for me just now, because this concept of boundaries has always felt to me ultra isolating, ultra exclusionary, ultra
like just a wall of like, sorry, you don't belong in my life anymore.
It's enabling. It's enabling a victimhood mentality that has really bothered me. So you're calling it not a boundary line necessarily that keeps people out, but it's a gate with special limitations. Okay, tell me about this.
And I actually, as I was writing, initially just had those fence lines and then had that conversation after speaking. They're like, well, what if I do want somebody in, but not all the time? It was that same conversation of like, no, it's a gate in our garden that we let people in or out. And if it's really getting bad, you're like, okay, I just need to stop for a while. The gate's shut for the next, I just need some space. Right. I had a friend, I was having this conversation. I'm like, it's not a no completely. It's just like right now I need to focus on me and get myself recentered because I can't have a relationship with you right now because I'm out of control inside. And I'm like, there's no problem in saying, hey, I need a couple weeks or just give me some space. There's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes we feel like we can't do that, right? We're supposed to always say yes and give or open the gates and just let them flood in. I had another story that was really cute. I was sharing this idea and concept early on with one of my tech moms. And I was at lunch with her and she had her 3 sons with her and I didn't realize they were listening. And she called me a few days later and she's like, Trina, I just got called into the principal's office. And I was like
literally school with the kids.
The kids' school. I'm like, uh-oh. And she's like, no, it was really cute. He goes, well, it was sad, but cute. He said that her son had gone into the teacher and said, so-and-so is a goat and he needs to stay out of my garden. And I'm like, what was happening? He was bullying him. He was beating up.
What a smart boy.
And he's like, he's a goat. He's destroying my garden. He needs to get out. And this analogy, just even these young minds picking up, right? To say, hey, I need to set some lines here too. Like I can go say, hey, stay out of my life. You're not okay for me. You need to stop.
And how old was he?
He was probably like 7 years old. And
boy.
I know. So I think there's a children's book coming here.
I think so too. Yeah. I know a really great artist if he really needs some
really?
art for children's books. She's illustrated
That's
a couple.
Serendipitous.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this gatekeeping, not in the traditional sense analogy. You know, the funny thing is my yard right now is overrun with foxtails. We haven't finished the backyard yet. Yeah. And I need some goats right now to come in.
And actually
let's clear it
start
out.
Over.
But is there space for how do you bring in a goat, the destructive, how do you fortify your garden against that? How do you bring them in appropriately? What does that look like? Especially if it's a boss.
Yeah. So this is what's really important is to know, like going back to, if you do like Simon Sinek, your why, your purpose, getting really clear on what is important to me. What am I focused on? And this works in life and in work. If you go in and you're having a conversation, let's say with your boss or your husband or anyone else, right? Your coworker, of like, here's what's important to me. If you're clear on that, and you can go into with your colleague or someone and say, what are the results that we should be focused on? Because this is what I understand is important for me in my role. Here's what's important for me in our relationship, and being able to be with somebody that can have that conversation. If they can't have that conversation, they're probably a goat. if they can't enable that and have like, oh yeah, let's align to what's most important to you and to us, and how do we bring those two things together? If you can't have those conversations, then that's a warning sign right there.
Mm-hmm.
So being really clear on what's important, going through the process of what's important in your business, what's important in your job, what's important in your life, making sure you have those priorities clear, enable better conversations. And in relationships, and as I've talked to couples that have gone through this process, it's really fun for them both, because maybe you think you know what the other person has as a priority, but maybe you don't. If you both do the work to figure that out on your own, and then come together and figure out how you can be the gardeners in each of others' gardens. Oh, okay, I know what's important to you. We've had that conversation. How can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Here's what's important to me. How can you help me? Then you start to bloom together. But if you're not having those conversations or not clear on what's important on both sides, then they start to maybe feel like you're being a goat, or you're stomping on their garden, or you're not enabling them in some way. And so it just helps in creating better conversations once you've gone through, like, oh yeah, what are the things? And it changes over time. This isn't a one and done process.
Yeah, no, I agree. You don't shower once and you're clean for your whole life.
Yeah, I mean, harmony is like something you're always seeking. And the goal is to be in more times of harmony than not.
I'm going to have all of your quotes plastered all over my gated garden in my backyard, right? I'm just thinking about where they can go.
You know what's fun about the quotes when I was writing? When I wrote the book, I started using all these other people's quotes. Oprah.
That was the first thing I noticed.
And this is something I got done with the book. I'm with the editor. I'm doing the final process. And I hired somebody to come in and do like all the research on the quotes and references. And she's like, why are you not using you as your quotes? Why are you using other people? And I'm like, yeah, why am I doing that? So I went back and changed them all, because I'm like, I've got some good things to share here. And so the beginning of every chapter, that was a change I went through, to go back and rechange all the quotes throughout the whole book.
I noticed that just yesterday morning.
Really?
Yeah, I was sitting on my front porch and I read the beginning quote to start off the chapter. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Who said that? Oh my gosh, it's Trina. Duh. Of course. Of course that's in there.
I love hearing
so
that.
That stuck out to me, that you're like, I have enough to say.
Yeah.
Remarkably on my own.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't need other people, but I can say it succinctly, and I deserve a quote space in my own book. I don't need to stand on Oprah's pedestal.
Shoulders.
God bless her, you know.
I know.
And when I teach my members to write their own books, I'm going to recommend it because it was in your book. Like, no, give your own.
You've got your own thing to say. Everybody has their own story, and you know, a lot of them. I think there was maybe 2 or 3 where I used somebody else out of 30 chapters. Though. Yeah. Where I was like, no, that needs to be there. But majority of them, I'm like, I went back and removed them all.
Yeah. Okay. So walk me through. Let's just say I'm a single mom, right? You and I have both been there.
Yes.
It's hard.
It's really hard.
The divorce is hard. It's not easy, even if it's right. It's hard.
Oh, absolutely.
You wake up. It's the day after the judge has signed off on the papers. It's official. You packed up wedding ring and did whatever you did with it. And you're waking up that morning, and maybe you don't have a job, and maybe you have just closed the gate off from a really awful experience with goats in your life, whether it was your husband or a former boss or whatever it is. Walk me through, as if I'm in that situation. What's the very, very first thing I need to do to tend to this garden?
Focus on the future. I had a quote that I had hanging on my wall when I went through my divorce, and I would look at it every day, and I'm going to get the quote wrong, so I'm going to just say it like I feel it right now. But it was about, you cannot go back and change where you've been, but you can change where you end up. And I think refocusing on that long-term new vision for yourself can be really exciting. It can get you re-engaged. It can get you feeling a sense of control and get you out of that potential victimhood mentality. It's like, yeah, I made mistakes. Yeah, I had these horrible things happen in my life, and I've had some really tragic things happen. But I now get to control how my story goes from here and where it ends. And I would wake up every morning looking at that quote. I'd go to bed with it every night with that quote, and I'd refocus on what can I control? What can I do from here? And it's opened so many doors. Like I still do that, right? Like, okay, where do I go from here? I've made it to this point. Now, what's that next thing? And so it then if you do that work and you say, okay, now what do I envision my relationships to look like? How much money do I want to make? Put the number in your head.
I was going to ask you about this.
Actual number, write it down. That's why in the book, I leave space at the end of every chapter to write.
It's a workbook too, which I love. So when you get Trina's book, we're going to put it in the show notes. Get a pen.
Yeah.
Get a coffee. Go to your front porch before everybody else wakes up.
And
work with it.
Yes, it's
which I love. It's not theory.
No, it's like you're going to do the work. And I've had people, I actually ended up doing just a workbook because I had people going, I just wanted to read the book and then I want to go back and do the work. So you can get the book and then there's a workbook as well that you can just go through once a year and say, okay, I'm going to redo the work. Where am I at now? Right. And what's that new picture of that new version that I want to create? Where did that change? What is my purpose now? Has it shifted? Purpose ultimately doesn't change, but the actions do.
I think so. Yeah. I use the analogy of a pilot. Yeah. Right. I took flight lessons for a while. I love flying. Your aim is always for the numbers on the runway.
Yeah.
But you never know when the wind's going to come and move you. So you have to redirect your angle all the time. And so that's perfect. Your purpose doesn't change. I think it can evolve.
Yeah.
And magnify. But just because something doesn't work, that doesn't mean your purpose isn't worthwhile.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love that.
And it's one where it becomes bigger. I think I get asked a lot, what would you tell your younger self? Right? I get asked that question a lot. And I think for me, it's like, you don't realize how powerful you are.
Oh man.
When you're young, you don't realize it until you start living through all these life experiences and doing. And then you're like, and then like, even for me now, I'm like, how much more powerful could I be? How much more impactful could I make my life? And it's something is like, okay, you are way more powerful than you realize.
I think that comes into play when you say first things first is set your vision, set your goals, design your garden, in other words.
Yeah.
I would put this on myself. I have done this where I think I dream too small, but it's so scary to be like, oh, but I want this big thing. And even saying it out loud is so hard.
Why do we do that? I don't know. Because what's the harm in going big? Nobody else needs to, like, if you write it down and you're like, I'm going to make $10 million this next year. Yeah, that might be like a sky's the limit, but why not?
Yeah.
What would it take to do that? How do I back into that plan? Like, then it gives you something to really target. My husband actually wrote himself a check when he was like 19 years old for $1 million and put a date on it.
Oh, nice.
And he achieved it. And
that's sick.
There is something so powerful in that envisioning to commitment, but don't hold yourself back. Why would you do that? Because maybe you can do $10 million this next year. What would it take? And it gets your mind kind of thinking on it. And I think that's what happened when I started thinking about writing the book and it just came to me. It's like my mind in the background was working on it somehow. And then all of a sudden it was like there. Right. And so there's a really strong connection and kind of like that manifestation process. It may or may not come in a different way, but really start setting the targets. It's the same thing when I, would do business strategy. And that's what my consulting and work has been for many years, is that in order to achieve the goal, you need to know where you're going, or else you're never going to get there. And how would you know if you arrive? And how do you tell your teams? How do you get the right people involved? If you can't share what your goal is and what you're trying to achieve, you can't communicate it. It's never going to happen.
Well, and you're not going to have retention even because nobody knows why
am I here? What am I doing? And so it's really focusing on results and where you're going, and then putting the path and the things in place to get there. And what would it take, right? And having the conversation. So I came up with that kind of, I call it my impact strategy, and setting that vision for myself and the work I do now. Like I still use that every day. So back in 2019, I was driving to take my team to lunch, and got a phone call from my doctor, and he says, Trina, your biopsy came back. You have breast cancer.
As you're in the car.
As I'm in the car driving, And I get to the restaurant and I remember I'm just completely numb, absolutely numb. And I walk in the door. I remember even hearing the bells on the door kind of jingle. And I look where I'm like, I don't even know how to have the conversation. I'm just like completely, I didn't even know how to react, right? Like couldn't even speak. And I just go over and I sat down and I say hi. I don't even think I said maybe 3 words the whole lunch. I was just kind of there in being, but
wow.
Like my head was just spinning and
you just never know.
You don't. And it, went through the process, had a double mastectomy, went through the whole cancer. I'm now 6-year survivor.
Amen.
And yay.
Let's go.
So, but what that experience gave me is you start to, when you face your mortality, it changes everything. Because for years, my goal and vision and purpose was like, I had grown up without money, right? We'd been on welfare at times, just didn't have financial means. I did not want to live that life. I still don't, right? That didn't change. But my goal had really been like building a big bank account, having that security financially was really important to me. It still very much is. But it shifted in going through and looking at the end of my life and saying, what are people going to say about me? Trina had a great big bank account.
Yeah, right.
Is that what they're going to say? Or is it going to be she developed people and had great relationships and made this major impact? And I ended up, you start doing your bucket list as well. When you go through that, you're like, all the things I wanted to do, I kind of got frenetic. I ended up going back to school to Harvard. I'd always wanted to go to Harvard, right?
Wow.
So I did business strategy at Harvard. And this is where we were talking about having in a business, you need to have a business vision and mission, right?
Any garden you want to grow.
You have to, right, exactly. And you need to be able to have those targets. I mean, all of these things that I have used analogies for kind of came from that because I was like talking to somebody after and we were sitting down to dinner and we were talking about this vision and mission. And I'm like, well, that's what we need in our own lives, right? And just kind of hit me right then of like, we need to have our own personal vision and mission statements or else our life is going to go, we're just living, right? Like, which is fine. But what are we really trying to achieve? Where do we get that purpose from if we don't know what we're really excited about and what we're going to be working towards? And I said to him, I'm like, well, what it feels like to me is like, I want my life like a heat map. I want my life to be able to shine and be able to see how broad of an impact can I really make in this world.
So you're talking like a global heat map.
A global heat map.
Where did Trina touch?
Yeah, how big of an impact can I make? And, there's 3 colors on my heat map. There's red. That might be somewhere where I offended somebody or hurt someone or was intentionally angered. Like, we all have a little bit of red, but shouldn't be, a whole worldwide Trina pissed everybody off. I don't want that.
It's an acne planet.
Yeah. But there's also the opposite of that, which is yellow, where it's like I really don't care. I'm just drifting through life. I don't have to be involved in anything. That's not my problem, right? That's somebody else's problem. Let them deal with it. I can see it, but I'm not doing anything about it. And I just watch that happen.
That's terrifying to think about.
It is, but a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
They just watch and go, oh, not my issue. That's yellow. I don't want that either. But I have in my mind, I'm a very visual person. It's like a Trina power blue. That's what I call it.
Like this electric.
It's like this like energy, right? Of how big of an impact can I really make in this world? And how would I do that?
I hope you have a painting of this somewhere.
I need to make one, don't I?
That's AI one.
My aunt's an artist. Maybe I'll have her make me.
I want it like on a wall.
Yeah, of like
galactic.
I want it to be like live and be able to see. I wish there was some way of like projecting, the impact.
That would be cool. You can see the sphere rotating and it's just blue lighting up over here. That would be
Where
so
are
epic.
the people that I'm working with? Maybe I can. I'm a technologist, so maybe I can make this.
Dude, I've had this similar vision, and then like on top of that, I have added in my mind people that I connect with. So there's like these little sunbursts.
Yeah.
That I've met a friend in Kenya years ago, and I was like, no matter we may never see each other again, but I feel so connected to you. And I know that you're doing good on the other side. So there's this like arc that connects us. We need to
absolutely. Yeah. It's like, how big is that impact? And what's my heat map going to look like? That's what I want my life to end like, is like, that's the impact I can have. And what's great about the work I do, and why I'm so passionate about it is it's not about tech careers, even though it's called Tech Moms. It's about life transformation. Mm-hmm. And when I start to work with individuals in our organization, now we've grown so big, I don't work one-on-one with people. And it's like you plant that spark carries to this person that turns into this flame. It gets to an inferno. And it's just like, I'm now watching it just like become this amazing, like I don't have to have the one-on-one. Mm-hmm. I can enable the one. It's that power of one goes to this one, to that one. And it just, their kids, their family members, just, it's incredible to watch.
And it's because the fire is so potent that we've got a 7-year-old boy at school using your analogy without you even trying. And the potency of the transformation is so palpable. That's what's making it spread. And that's why I heard about it before I even met you.
Yeah. It is extremely rewarding to go, I saw a problem. I was passionate. Nobody else was taking care of this. And then now like, and it's been a ton of work, but guess what? I was passionate about it, so it didn't feel like work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I spend a lot of time on the phone. I make a lot of phone calls. I'm out there talking all the time because this drives me. Like I have this sense of urgency and people are like, why are you so passionate? Why are you so driven? I'm like, because I feel like there is a war happening that we are in that nobody is seeing what is happening. And I feel this sense of urgency to create change. And my way of doing that is to enable the financial independence, the ability to feel confident, to be able to move forward, to be able to own their lives and to be able to transform. That for me is my version of success, whether it's one person or hopefully, 5 million, who knows where this could go. And so my co-founders kind of have to rein me in sometimes because they're like, Trina, like, okay. Because I'll be like, tech moms around the world, right? Like there is no reason we shouldn't be doing this everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And the life transformations, I've seen women come out of homeless shelters and their stories of 2 young kids sitting on their lap while they're not sure where they're going to go next. And within 18 months, become full web developers, even leading teams and buying their first home.
Oh my gosh.
It is powerful. Just somebody trusting and saying, I believe in you. You've got this. Let's go. Let me show you how.
Yeah.
There's so many, especially women looking for that. And to your point earlier, we hold ourselves back and we got to stop doing that. We got to stop saying, oh, I can only go so far. I'm only allowed, like, I can't get off the leash. Break the damn leash, right?
Kick the goats out.
Not going to kick the goats out of your garden, unleash yourself and let's go, right? There is a spark there for every single person, something in them that needs to be just unleashed, like a superpower that's just waiting to go. Let's go. I was speaking a few years ago and I got done again. I hear the funniest things after sometimes when I'm speaking. She comes up to me. She's like, Trina, I found my superpower. And I'm like, that's awesome. What is it? And she goes, quilting. And I'm like, awesome. I did not expect this at all.
I don't know anything about that, but you go.
Okay, go. And she did. She started her own business and she's like took her hobby and it's like, I can't tell what people's talents or what gives them energy or what, I mean, she was like so full of energy.
Just
it was
lit up.
So, like, yes, let's go. And I'm like, that's awesome. And so there's ways of learning how to monetize or take that thing. You know it. Everybody knows. You can feel it when it taps in. You start getting that excitement. Write it down. I'm going to tell you, just keep writing it down. And it comes over time. I mean, my journey didn't happen overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody ever does. Anyone that we look at and they're like, oh, you're so lucky you have 3 million whatevers and followers and hundreds of millions in the bank. No, you did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Through a lot of hard work.
And intentionality and focus.
And consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, consistency is huge. I struggle with that one.
Oh man. I have to accountable myself. I tell people I'll shave off an eyebrow if I don't do this. And then they check in with me to make sure I have to shave off my eyebrows. You have to be
like, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I've actually done this. This goes back to like the public speaking thing, right? I find myself getting pulled in and asked to speak for free a lot. And I've had to rein it back in a lot because I'm like, I'm doing it too much. So I've kind of done this, 1 to maybe 2 times a month because I still need to promote and I still want to support the organizations that are important to me. And I'll be very selective on where I do that. But my EA, I tell her, I'm like, Kay, where am I at? How many have I, like, Kay? And she's like, Trina. So she holds me accountable too, because I've committed, like, I want to give back, but I want to be intentional about where I give back and how much, because it will consume me. It becomes a goat. Like, right. Like, my time is precious.
Everyone's is. They just don't know it yet a lot of times.
Yeah.
Well, and to the speaking thing, like, that lights me up when I hear people that are getting on stage a lot. I work with a lot of people who crave more stages.
Yeah.
And then they get them and they're like, oh, hold on.
Yeah.
That was a lot. Let's back off. And my thought is, if the stages stop feeding you in one way or another, then now you have a transactional instead of a reciprocal relationship.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And whenever I have a friend who has a wellness center out of Florida, and she's asked to speak all the time. And I said, the way you make this sustainable, and I hope this is, like, when I hear you say this is the same thing I would say is, like, when you can make it sustainable to where the stage, you can track where it compensates, not just, compensates you for your time, of course, but you can track how far your reach goes because of that.
Yes.
That's where it gets reciprocal.
Exactly.
And that's the beautiful part of it. And I'm glad that you're still saying yes. And I'm glad that you're out there, because there are magnificent, brilliant people who have stopped speaking.
Yeah.
And their messages are now buried with them, or will be.
I call it getting muffled. I had a few years ago, this is back in 2019, actually right after I had cancer. I get concerned that especially women's voices at a young age get muffled very early on. And I was the global president of Women in IT at eBay. We had about 1,500 members globally, and we would run leadership programs and all of these different things for them. And we had one organization we worked with called Girls Leadership Academy Meetup. Super fun. 3 days, they come in how to do business plans, pitches, marketing, product placement, like they develop a product from beginning to end. We'd have them get on stage and they'd speak and they'd present. It was freaking powerful.
That's dope.
These little girls, 8 to 12, wearing tutus and their striped socks. They were adorable, right? And I'm like, man, they're freaking powerful. When do we get cut off? And I was a judge, and one of the groups got up and they're like, we're going to design an app so that people that aren't feeling well can connect with other people, because we know that that's how people can heal, is through connectedness. And I started bawling because I had just gone through my mastectomy and been sitting in the hospital and knew there was 3 other women that day that had gone through my same surgery, but you can't get out of bed. And I remember thinking, I wonder how they're doing. Because I know I'm not okay.
Because you've all went through the same thing just now.
And like, what if we were able to connect through this app that these little girls had created? And like, it just hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, we are not giving them the tools to create what would probably solve some of the world's biggest issues, because we say, no, not you. You're supposed to be over here, and your role is to, I don't know. I'm going to have my views, and it might
be opinionated.
Can I
bring it, please?
Family isn't always first.
Say it. I saw that in your message. You're like, yep, I said it.
I said it. You can be mad at me, but it's not. Parenting is not your purpose. It is not. It is something that brings us joy. It is part of our relationships. It's something that I love, being a mom, but it is not my purpose. And I get concerned that we say it's an or, not an and, in saying you can be a great mom and have that, and you can do all this other impact or business or whatever it is, and you can orchestrate. We didn't talk about orchestration. It's not a flat, do all these things at once. And there's like the analogy of the balls in the air. That doesn't feel good to me either.
No.
Because it feels like something's going to shatter.
And I know I'm not good at juggling.
No. Like, we shouldn't be juggling or tightrope walking or doing, all of these things. It's an orchestration. And it's like, okay, right now, like when I went through cancer, it's like, okay, my work, everything's got to stop. I've got to swing over here and handle my health. Okay, now I'm going to swing over here. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to focus on my family, or I'm going to focus on my son that had called at the suicide hotline at 2 a.m. and walked himself to the hospital without me knowing, because he was going to commit suicide. And for 3 months after that, I would wake up every morning and run down the stairs and knock on the door to make sure he was still alive.
I can't imagine the amount of terror.
Everything just stops, right? because all these other things that are going on in my life, it's not that they don't completely stop. It's just not right now. I got something else. It's way more important.
I can hear your music as you're conducting this. I seriously, like, I grew up in a musician household, and we would go to the symphony all the time, and I would watch the conductor, and my mom tried to get me into piano, and she taught me since I was 5. I have her teach my kids now. And my sister plays the organ, and my brother played the violin, and my husband now, he plays the trumpet. My daughter plays the trumpet now. But my spot, I have found, just like you're saying, has been at the conductor stand.
Yes. You are the conductor of your life. I
play those instruments, but I can tell them when to come in. I can tell them when to be silent. And any piece of music that's ever inspired you goes through a little bit of pain. There's a little bit of crescendo. There's some decrescendo. There's suspense in the music, and there's resolution in the music. Sometimes it's cathartic and it's there to help you cry. And sometimes it's joyful celebration. And there's no more perfect analogy for what is your music of life? What song do you want to hear? Today might be different from tomorrow. You know?
Absolutely.
And I love that you've brought that to light. And I want everyone that's listening, I want everyone to read your book, one, so that we can talk common language and literally have a same page to be on. So we know what goats are. And we know what, right. We know what our gardens are.
Goats and our gardeners go through and identify them.
And we share a vision. But I also want everyone to read it to understand that this balancing act and the juggling, it's not a thing.
No.
It's not what we're supposed to do. And you know what? Sometimes the family's good. They're taken care of. And you can go build you. And you can go do what you love, because that part doesn't need to perform right now. They're good. They don't need mom. Go. Absolutely. Go be you. Go be Marianne. Go be Trina. Go be Rachel. Go be Sarah, whoever you are.
Well, and what happened for me, like even with my son, I got so hyper fixated on him that I lost myself again. And because I was running down the stairs every day, and I'm in these panic attacks, and I'm like living in fear, and I had to stop and recenter on me again. And I had to go get counseling, because I had gone through a traumatic experience too.
Absolutely.
Not just him. And as I was working with them, and I started going through, and I did EMDR and was like, okay, how do I let go of this? And I realized, and I remember they were asking me, what does it feel like? Like, how are you feeling? You know, really tying in those emotions. And I felt like I had to hold on to my fear. My fear was somehow keeping him alive.
Because that what made you check on him.
Yeah.
And
that's what's driving me is like, if I'm not scared, he's going to die. That's what it was like for me.
Oh man.
And
all of us.
Yeah. You just know that feel like somehow my emotion, and I'm like that, even though I logically know that's what was happening for me. And so we went through this process of taking that emotion and envisioning this basket. She was like, okay, put it in, a box. I'm like, no, it's got to be a basket. It has to be nicely lined. It has to be like protected.
Right.
Like I can I know it's there. It doesn't go away, but I don't have to hold it all the time. I don't have to be like carrying like this fear of what might happen. Really going through, and another amazing book called, Letting Go, learning to let go. And going through that process, same when I went through cancer, I had to learn to let go. I might die. And I had to get okay with that, because it was the same like panic attack. Like I wasn't sleeping, and it wasn't, I had to let go and say, you know what, it's going to be okay. Whatever happens, happens, and we'll get through it. So I had to kind of set that to the side and know it didn't, like I say, it doesn't go away, but it doesn't trigger that panic reaction. And that, I'm not there. I'm not then able to connect with her, because I'm in this like constant like anxiety that doesn't allow me to function.
Oh, and that could be the fear of a divorce. It could be the fear of losing your job. It could be having lost your job and you don't know what to do next. And I think as women, I was just listening to I'm a sucker for a good Instagram reel, but I saw this reel this morning about, the cycles of men and the cycles of women, and like the lunar and the solar and all of this stuff. It got a little bit woo-woo, but it's kind of scientific too, which is really neat. That I think in large in part that the women of the world we have not studied enough about ourselves. On Mel Robbins' podcast, she had a guest that says, women are not small men.
No.
We are women. We function differently. We have different seasons. We have different ebbs. We have different flows. We have different superpowers like quilting or art or whatever it is that
or tech
that the world is desperately in need of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think that we have enough examples like you of women who are appearing on stages and saying, look, see, I went through very much of what you're going through and we're here. We're still kicking.
We're still kicking. We're still going.
Beautifully.
Still going through it.
Even through the ugly pain. Yeah. Here we are. And I just personally, from me to you, and I think on behalf of everyone that's listening, I just want to thank you for being one of those women that's willing to get up and say, guess what?
Yeah.
It's possible. And you don't have to be me. You don't have to be the guru guy.
No, you be you.
Be you.
That's the most powerful version anyway. Why be anybody else? I call it unwrapping the boxes, because our whole life we keep getting socialized into this box of like, you should be what your role is. And you kind of like, you get wrapped up into, you get put in the box. Yeah. Utah's.
We're very good at this.
We need a whole other podcast session on that one.
I'm down.
Yeah. We end up putting ourselves in this box that other people have put us in. And then we get wrapped up, and sometimes it's wrapped in fear and doubt and shame and guilt of like, oh, well, I shouldn't be doing this because I know I should, but what will they say? What will they do? How would society treat me? Like,
I left my job and I was still asking that about my former boss. I was like, oh, is that okay with my boss? I'm like, wait, I don't work for him anymore.
No, I would, with my ex-husband, I would do things out of fear. I found myself, even after we'd split, doing things and asking, should I do this? How will they react?
Yeah.
I was living my life based on how somebody else might treat me.
And I think it's a survival
even
mechanism.
Going to the grocery store, like, are they going to be mad that I went to the grocery store? Do they know where I'm at right now? Like, I was like in this, like, seriously toxic,
gosh.
I was living my life, and here I am, like the provider and making really good money. And like, you'd think I'd be in control, but they had me so wound up in their expectations of me that I was living in fear and living my life through that fear. Like all my decisions were had a fear consideration right before I do anything.
And for me, that comes from when we're kids and we get our parents' discipline, we want to avoid that. We want to avoid the spanking. I grew up in a spanking world, right?
Yeah.
We want to avoid the spanking. We want to avoid the conflict. We want to avoid getting in trouble. So we vanilla ourselves, and adding any flavor in is exceptionally dangerous and threatening.
We could do another whole thing. The expectations of others are very damaging. And that's why it's so important to go back and do your work and centering on, okay, there is nothing that nobody's going to know that you're doing the work, right? You just go do it on your own and do it. You have to stop making decisions on what your purpose is based on what other people's expectations are of you. And it's really hard to break that because you've been told this is what you do, right? Like the whole time I was growing up I remember my dad telling me, you will never be happy unless you are not working and you're a mom at home.
That's a huge blanket, a heavy blanket.
Heavy. Like you will never be happy because you're working, because you're finding fulfillment outside of just being a mom. I shouldn't use say just mom, but outside of being a mom, like that, there was something wrong with that. And so I had to unravel that. Like I had to sometimes take a hacksaw and chop those things that have got me wrapped up. Right. And it still hits and kind of unbrainwash yourself.
Yeah.
So when you start doing that work, be aware of the thoughts of, is this somebody else's idea of what I should be focused on, or is this really me?
Am I in somebody else's garden?
Yeah.
In other words, am I helping them grow something that's not even mine? I can't harvest.
Yeah.
So when I hear you say that, we've got the goats that come in and trample everything. Let's just first establish that you're in your own garden. You made your own plan. Yeah. I want daffodils over here. I want hyacinths over here. I want zucchini over here. I planned it all out. I know how many I need. I kicked the goats out. Now I need to invite the gardeners in.
Yes.
Describe the gardeners. How can we identify them? How do we know who is who is supposed to be there? How long are they supposed to be there? Help us understand that.
So there's a couple of things here, because let's talk business for a moment. One of the things, especially for women, that I found is they feel like they have to have a really deep relationship with someone before they ask for something. And so for me, I will reach out to people, and it goes back to knowing exactly what I'm asking for. Mm-hmm. What am I trying to bloom? What am I struggling with in my business? Is it marketing? Is it sales? Is it, whatever it is.
That's a big first step, by the way. I don't want to dismiss that.
Yeah.
Because so many people are like, I just want more business. No, that's not specific enough.
Yeah. You need to be very specific. So then you can find the right gardeners. And sometimes I will just text somebody that I've met like barely and be like, hey, I know you're really good at this. I'm struggling with this. Do you have any ideas on who I could connect with or somebody? And I'm a super connector. I pull in people all the time. It doesn't mean that I have to spend hours with them. Mm-hmm. I can just say, hey, I've got this challenge. What would you suggest? More than often than not, people want to help.
That's true. That's true. And if they don't, just eject
That's
them.
Okay. I get ghosted all the time. It doesn't mean but the ones that respond are extremely beneficial.
Well, and you're so busy reaching out that you probably don't even notice being ghosted anymore.
No, well, once in a while, but not very often. Most people are responsive and they want to help and they want to feel like they've been reciprocated. So it's like sometimes I will go help them with something, right? Whether it's like going to speak or going to do something because they've helped me. And you don't have to have these big long-term. So goats can come in a lot of different forms as far as like, it might be the quick win. It might be like, hey, I'm going to hire a coach. It might be people that really give you joy to be around. Like, hey, we love to go hiking and biking and hobbies, and all my personal development gardeners are different than my financial planner, right? It's going to be very different. Speaking of finances, that is something that is another area that often is underbloomed or underplanned.
Yeah. I'm with you on that priority thing because we went through a period where we were on welfare.
Yeah.
And that was, first of all, I was grateful that the programs existed and I could feed my kids, but I knew it wasn't permanent. So I was always asking, how do I graduate? How do I graduate? And how do I get to my comfortable, my bank account gives me ease instead of anxiety.
Yeah. Because it's hard to focus on anything else if you're financially strapped and struggling.
Yeah.
And so it might be like some of these other things are going to have to be like a not now while you're focusing, kind of that orchestration again. It's like, I got to get my mental health and my financial pieces together so then I can go do and take vacations and do all these other things that give me joy, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a need to be able to discover where are those disharmony points, and it might be your finances and okay, what are we going to do to be able to get back on track? Some of our tech moms that have gone through the program have actually gone to, there's other programs out there that help with financial wellness that are free. You don't need to hire anybody to do. There's a lot of programs and information out there. She Money's one of them. That's a great organization that just talks about financial education and how to, budget, how to invest, how to build wealth, right?
We'll have to put that. It's She and Money.
Yeah, it's She Money.
She Money. I'm going to put it in the notes.
Yeah. Great organization here that really helps with that.
Yeah. So, that's really cool because there's a lot of spammy people out there that claim to be financial coaches or whatever. I've fired all of my financial people. Oh, they've lost a lot of money for me. Yeah.
They're really good at that. And fees. So, and I write about this in the book. I actually have 2 chapters on financial wellness and really focusing on putting focus there. Don't avoid it. I think that's what I see is there's a lot of aversion. It's like, it's not my thing. I'll let my spouse, I'll let somebody else know. Control. You can do that. And I remember growing up and my mom would always be clipping coupons and spending all these hours clipping coupons. And I always was thinking now, what if she would have taken that time and read some investment books and invested in some stocks? And then, just that blooms so much faster. Stop the coupon clipping and start learning how to invest.
I used to grab all the grocery ads from all the 3 different stores. I had my Smith's one, my Albertsons one, and I would price shop and I would drive to the other store if they had a better price on grapes. Yeah. I remember specifically doing that. And if I could get that time back.
I know the time. And I'm like, what if you were just to take that, pay a little extra on your grapes and start taking and just putting $10 a month, whatever it is, just start getting in the habit of researching stocks and investing and getting that wealth portfolio building on your behalf. I mean, all my wealth, I wouldn't say all, majority of my wealth has come because my money's working for me. I'm not working for it. And so that has given me the freedom to be able to leave my corporate job and run a nonprofit. Without that, I've been living off that, my portfolio I'd built over 25 years in order to now make the impact I'm making. I couldn't have done it had I not invested and been involved. I've made a lot of big mistakes, huge mistakes, but more often than not, I made good decisions, and it all is additive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does empower you in so many different ways. I know a lot of our students, myself included, if you can end up staying in really bad relationships if you're financially dependent,
or getting into some really bad relationships
because you feel like, oh, I've got to find the person that's going to take care of me,
which is important. I get that.
Yeah,
I get that. But the security of knowing, let's just say you got into a relationship that can provide for you, but you don't need them to.
Yeah. How much better of a relationship do you end up having?
Yeah.
Because you don't have those power dynamics
going
on. So I, really learning, I went to Senegal, Africa with an organization once called the Global Hunger Project. And their whole goal was to end poverty and become self-reliant for tens of thousands of people in Africa, India, like all over the world, right? And I had the opportunity to go with them. And I remember her asking one of the individuals, a woman, you need to, or she actually just stated it, you need to put money in your own pocket. And that's always kind of stuck with me, like keep your money in your own pocket, because you can then make the decisions on where that goes and how it's invested, and, be part of that decision process. And the way that they become or create self-sufficiency for all of these people is they actually require that women are included in the decision making. And if your group or community won't do that, they won't work with you.
Wow.
It's required.
And that's revolutionary in some areas. Africa's a big continent.
It is. And they were very much, it was a polygamy, very religious type environment. And we were sitting, and we would go to these villages out in the middle of nowhere, right? Drive through the sands for hours on end. Ugh. And we end up in these villages with all these wonderful people. And we'd sit down on these colored mats, and we'd be talking to them about what was it like to start. And they'd set goals, they'd set the vision, they would track their goals. They would then start bringing together the community. They'd bring women in, they do microloans, women run businesses.
Oh, that's
They didn't
beautiful.
give them anything. And this one individual says to me, and this has stuck with me, and it's a lot of the reasons why I started Tech Moms. And he said, we don't want your handouts. We don't want your charity. Knowledge is our power.
And that came from them.
That came from them. He's like, we want knowledge. We want education. Everybody should be investing in their learning and reading and growing all the time. And then the other question that really was another key thing for me was, she asked the question, we're sitting on these mats, and she looks at the chief of the village and says, what was it like to start including women in decision making?
Wow, what did he say?
And he said, at first we were scared. And I'm like, what do you mean you were scared? I'm like having this internal, like, what? Am I that scary? I don't know.
Yes.
But he's like, we thought we'd lose our power. And then he went on to say, he goes, but what we found out is things actually got a lot easier. They knew a lot about healthcare. They knew about education. They knew how to solve things we didn't know how to solve. And I'm like, well, duh. To me, it's like, well, yeah, but I had to go all the way to Africa to go, that's the same issue we're seeing right now, right where I live.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a power struggle. Right now, it is illegal to say the word woman and have women-led programs in higher education in the state of Utah.
Are you kidding me?
We are at war, and we don't even realize it.
Heck?
It is illegal. And so they've had to disarm. I was on the Women's Success Center board at UVU for many years. They just disbanded it. It's because it's now in our laws. You cannot use it. You can use the word man. Can't use the word woman.
What the heck?
And I don't think a lot of people realize what's happening.
I have no idea. What?
We are going through that same thing right now, and people don't even realize what's happening. And we're voting these people in that are making really poor decisions for the success of our future, because I look at the self-reliance issues and the poverty issues and the social economic issues, and all of the different things that are happening are because we separated instead of coming together. And that's the issue is we keep opting out. We keep being told not to participate. We let other people go into politics and into leadership and all these other roles, and we don't do it. Guess what happens? What's happening right now?
Yeah. Our voices get quiet.
We get quieter and we end up losing a lot of rights.
Yeah.
I do have concerns. I don't want to project anything, but I do have concerns that we are going to lose even more rights going forward.
That's astounding to me in a first world country.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We think we live in a different place than we do. And if you step back and really look at it, we're fighting the same challenges and wars that have been going on for centuries. We assume modernization, but we're still at war. We're still dealing with suffrage.
We need to have a ladies fill your cup where you take the spotlight for a day and just talk about this.
Yeah. I mean, we need to bring our voices together. The other challenge I see is that we do a lot of isolated work. There's a lot of great work happening, but there's a need to bring all of those voices together to one, and that builds strength. And I see not just women, it's like all together, not doing these pocketed. It needs to be somehow, and I don't have the answers. This is why I need everybody else's
superpowers. That's why we need each other, right? That's why we built this community. That's why Hope and I brought these women together.
Yeah.
So that we could do that without any pettiness or cattiness or factions or popularity contests or whatever like that. It's a group of powerful women who love men.
Yeah,
and we respect our men. Nothing like that.
I sometimes I've had people say, "Well, you're such a feminist." I'm like, I'm not a feminist. I'm a humanist.
Yeah.
It is not about male, female. It's about humanity and how we treat each other, regardless of gender. I don't care about gender. I care about being treated as a human. And sometimes I haven't been. And that
amen to that.
That's where I get, anger is a strong emotion. And I started Tech Moms out of anger because I got mad. I'm like, I'm tired of this. This is not okay. We need to be doing something. And so anger is not a bad thing. It's okay to be angry as long as you put it into action.
It's a powerful horse. It just needs to be bridled and put in the right direction.
Exactly. And I'm like, recognize when you're angry. It's probably a rational response to something. And don't
righteous indignation.
Don't feel like you should never be angry. There's a reason, right? Or feeling any of emotions are a inside reflection of something that might need to change, or something that's like, yeah, this is good. I'm in harmony. Things are great. That happen. It's just being aware. It's that intentionality and stepping back, going, oh yeah, this is where I'm at right now. Good or bad.
I wanted to talk about a couple of things you have coming up because we moved this episode up to where it would be airing today because specifically of a couple of things you have coming up and a couple deadlines.
Yeah.
They're coming up. Tell me about everything that's going on.
Yeah. So I'm working with a couple organizations. The first one I wanted to talk about, and this goes back to that knowledge is our power. I have a huge passion for creating more opportunity through careers, through knowledge. One of those is AI right now. I have a feeling like if we really want to win the AI war or be on top of things, we all need to lean into this. AI is not a tech play. It is a people play. It's a way that you're going to be running your businesses without having to staff up costs. It is the way of the future. You need to be involved. We're offering this program for $99 to go in. No coding, no math. You just come in and learn 8 weeks through the summer. It starts I think May 26th, 27th. I'm working because that's Memorial Day.
Yeah.
So we're trying to launch the last week of May. You can go to I would say just email me is probably the best way.
And say your email and we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. It's Trina@risenext.com. It's RIZENEXT.com. You can also, and I've also got information out there. If you email me, I'll send it right over to you. $99 for an 8-week full course. You actually get hands-on projects. They do career coaching, like amazing organization. It's sarahsai.org if you want to go directly to there and check that out. Register your high schoolers, your college students. I'm
thinking of my daughter right in here.
Go do it. It's seriously such an opportunity. And they also give credit to if you want to move forward and get a degree in AI.
Wow.
So,
yes, they're creating degrees now.
Yeah. AI associates and bachelor's degrees. So
it's such a huge blanket. That's crazy.
And it's the number one job that's being hired for right now.
Well, yeah. And the thing is, AI doesn't threaten jobs. People need to run the AI. Yeah. And it creates ways for mom and pop shops, small businesses
to scale without having to have huge staff. Yeah.
Yes.
It is the most one. Everybody go sign up for that. It's virtual.
Get it. We'll put the link in below.
Go, by the end of summer, you're going to have so much more understanding than you do right now.
Yeah.
In 2 months, you're going to be like, oh, wow, okay, I can start tackling a lot of these concepts. The other one that we're working with Comcast, and I was a recipient of this grant. It's called the RISE grant, RISE. Mm-hmm. And they are doing $5,000 grants, but that not just the money, but also they give hardware and computers. They give media. So you'll get ads on their media platforms.
That's insane.
And business coaching. So
that's insane.
They're targeting South Salt Lake. So if your business is registered South Valley area, like Riverton, Draper, Sandy, there's a list of zip codes that they're including. Go apply. And even if you're like adjacent, go apply. Because I'm working with the team, and if we can get enough applications, you never know. So just go apply.
I have some friends in Highland that I need to send this to.
Yeah. Help us get the word out, because that's one. It's free money, free coaching, hardware, like such a great. And I benefited from it about 3 or 4 years ago, and allowed me to hire a marketing and sales outreach person, and I had the laptops to give them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So huge opportunity for business owners. Just take advantage of it, and they're hoping to get the word out. So if you know somebody else that can utilize that, please go out there as well. But yeah, a lot of exciting things coming. And then, I'm always out there speaking and doing my work. So you can find my book and get the workbook and kind of learn a little bit more how to orchestrate your own life work harmony.
Well, and one of the reasons I podcast is to introduce people that I love to other people that I love, even if I haven't met everyone on the other side of the camera yet. So if Trina's resonating with you, not only go through the links, but my guess is if there's someone in your world whose name has just popped into your mind over and over and over while you've been listening to this, that's a clue. And the clue is, listen, they've been praying for an answer you just heard, and their angel messengers are talking to your angel messengers, and that's why they keep whispering their name in your ear. Send this episode to them. And if you've got this episode from someone, tell them thank you, because they were thinking of you. They had their hearts and their souls open to receiving inspiration that may help you. So just tell them thank you. I want to ask, is there any phrase to the woman that's listening to this, or to the man who's going to send this to his significant other or his sister or whoever it might be, to the woman who's on her last shred of hope and they picked up or they Googled and they found this episode, what would you tell them?
Tune into yourself. I do tune in moments throughout the book, and I found that very powerful, of getting outside of the noise and the emotion and all of it and just recentering. Just go sit down and start writing. I did this actually with a friend just yesterday. She was really struggling, and I just went and bought a journal at the store, and I took it to her house, and I just left it on her front porch because I knew she was just like, I'm just not in a place to be able to talk to people right now. And I said, go let it out. Go write it down. And I gave her 2 pens. One's a black ink. Get it out. And then you go back with the red pen, and you circle the red flags or the things that you want to work on, or your things brilliant. Like, just because you end up getting it, like, let it out, let all the emotion go.
Yeah, dump it,
and then go back, and with clarity, it might be a week or 2 or a month later with the red pen, and go, this is probably a red flag, or, you start to kind of like read your own. So just tune into yourself, because it's in you. You don't need to go out anywhere else, or just, you can go through your own process, right? Listen to yourself.
That's so beautiful. I kind of did something like that with AI. I vomited in AI. Oh, and I was like, tell me my red flags.
Yeah.
Tell me what's going on with
awesome.
me, please.
It's your red pen.
It was totally my red pen. I was like, I don't need you to enable me. I don't want you to take my side. I need you to help me diagnose this.
Yeah.
So whatever you do, journal, go digital or analog.
I love
it's tech mom, so go with whatever you feel like best. But I just want to say thank you. You've blessed me by being here. You've blessed my daughter by being here. You've blessed everyone that's ever going to listen to this ever again by being here. And you're doing good work. And I know that you paid a high price to do it.
Yeah, thank you.
But in case no one's told you, it was worthy. So thank you.
Thank you. Love this. What a great session.
Thank you. That's it for this episode of the Marianne Hickman Show. Go check out Trina's work. Her book is going to be linked in the comments, as well as everything else we talked about today. If you're listening to this on the day it was posted, you got to hurry and get those deadlines because they're coming up at the end of the month, if not before.
Yeah, I'll put them on my website at trinaceleste.com too today. So
perfect.
That's probably the easiest way to be able to find both those resources.
Okay, great. Well, go to the website. If you're watching this afterwards, maybe trinaceleste.com has some new updates and fresh things. So
always putting them out there. So keep an eye out, subscribe to our newsletter, and we'll just keep them coming.
Good. Get in with that. We love you, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed that episode. We have some pretty amazing speakers on my podcast, and of course, more to come. If this is something that you enjoyed, guys, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. I love your comments, and I respond to every single one of them personally, not a bot or an agency. So if this is something you're enjoying, tell me about it. Tell me your gold nuggets. I want to hear from you. But here's the most important thing I want you to laser in on. I told you about the podcast database. You've probably seen me post about it all over social media. I want to make sure that you get it. So here's what I want you to do. Go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put all of your information in there, I'm going to send you the document. You request access to it. Boom, it's unlocked. Once you're in there, my rule of thumb is to apply to 10 podcasts a month. It's very digestible. It's very easy to do. And the database gets updated twice a week. So I want you constantly checking back in there for the next podcast that fits your audience. Thank you for being here. Much love to you, and we'll see you in the next episode.